Hi, I'm Naomi Hall, and I want to welcome you to Mindset Makeover, finding your power through fitness, nutrition, and community. There's so much conflicting information out there today about how to be healthy. And one of the pieces that can often be missed is the mindset component. So that's what we're focusing on in this summit because your mindset is so important and really it's foundational to health. So today I have with me Jesse Coomer. And he is one of the foremost voices in the world of breathwork today. But for most of his life, and we're going to get into his story a little bit, he was a mess of stress and anxiety and suffered from what he dubbed the modern human condition, which probably a lot of us suffer from too. And in 2009, he began a life transformation mission that led him to discover how our physiology and psychology often conflict with the modern world and each other. So, Jesse, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Naomi.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're here. And I would just love to hear kind of your story of transformation of kind of where you started in really an unhealthy place and the how mindset played into your transformation.
Yeah. So so thanks for having me on this. And this is something that I think a lot of us can relate to, even if we don't realize we can relate to it right now. There's a lot of, I would say, confusion about what we are as a species and how this all works. So for me, like so many people, I had a lot of stress and anxiety. I'm an interesting combination, I guess. I'm an extrovert and I also suffer from social anxiety. So it was kind of a strange combination coming up as a youth, and there are a lot of ways to handle um, that I just used a lot of really negative ways. So I uh, I really didn't take myself. I didn't exercise. That's you get all sweaty and sore and stuff. I didn't have any positive habits really. And then eventually I went to drugs and alcohol and all these things. And ultimately, what I was trying to do is what so many people try to do, whether it is in that path or so many other paths. And that is, I was trying to control the way I felt. And that is because I was afraid of how I felt. And I didn't understand what the underlying messages were. I didn't understand where all these things were coming. I don't blame anyone. I think that most of us are unaware of how this stuff works. You might talk about your emotions, and I think a lot of us look at emotions as that, well, this is this kind of a weird part of being a human. We look at the science fiction shows, and there's the alien planet where no one has emotions, and wow, wouldn't that be great? They don't have to be afraid and they never have to be
Mhm.
sad, and boy, but then they'd never get those good emotions either. And so we're that's kind of how we look at it. It's just, well, it's just part of being human, and it is, but we never really talk about the biological functions of emotions, the biological functions of the stress stimulus of this thing that we nowadays dub as anxiety, right? We have these ailments that seem to, they, of course, they've always been part of the human condition, but now we live lives nothing like our ancestors lived. So so much of our nervous system, much of our psychology, that was adapted to live in a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, it's at odds with the world that we live in now, where everything is online and there's really no comparison between the life that we live now and the life that the vast majority of humans throughout human history have lived. So for me, I found that as, I found drugs and alcohol and just basically giving up. If you didn't try, then you didn't have to fail. And there's so many of those things. I was just a big ball of that.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until a little bit later on in my late 20s, I was like, man, this is no good.
Mhm.
This is not how I want to live my life. And so that led me to kind of slowly but surely, I was like, oh, it seems like they say exercise is a good thing. And okay, I'm feeling a little bit better. Oh, they say that, okay, better eating. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Once you get past having to change your flavor palette and getting used to all of that, oh, wow, I feel so much better. And I was trying to get into meditation because meditation is something that I'd heard of. A friend of mine said that it was just really fantastic. He tried to teach me meditation, and um, he failed. I I the thing is, as soon as I started to sit down and try to meditate, I I was like, is it over yet? Is it, and so I was looking for ways to get into meditation because I was wanting to do that. And that's when I stumbled across breath work. And I had no idea that something like that, first of all, that it even existed.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, so this thing that everybody does already, that is first of all, that's a thing, and so
Like
what
I have to
happened
learn
was,
how to breathe.
right. I've been doing that this whole time.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize is that I had been breathing stress into my life with every single breath that I took. I didn't realize how much anxiety and stress that I was carrying around. And I don't think most people realize that, even if they're like, I'm very stressed out all the time. I don't think they even realize just how much they've kind of just adapted to carry around.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I started to get into breath work that I would say a few months later, I was like, wow, life is different, and ultimately I was starting to experiment with this thing that is connected to everything. And our breathing, whether we know it or not, whether a person would like to believe this or not, um, and for better or worse, your every breath you take influences your heart rate, your insulin levels, your adrenaline levels, your hormones, your blood pressure, your digestion. It influences practically everything about you because it's connected to your nervous system, and it is a way of influencing unconscious processes. So when we learn breath work, we're learning not only about, okay, you breathe like this. So much out there is just, okay, just breathe like this, and then it's this simple trick. So we're trying to kind of dispel maybe some of the misinformation or some of the confusion out there. A lot of it is out there. It's just you breathe like this, and then it'll magically make things better. And for the most part, yes, you breathe a technique, you do something like that, you will notice a change. But there's an underlying reason for that.
Mm.
And this is what I've developed into my underlying philosophy of breath work, which is called the language of breath. And ultimately, it is essential to understand what we are, because so often we look at ourselves as something other than what we are. We often look at ourselves as a machine,
Mm-hmm.
or as something, it's not this, this, unified organism. It is a machine, and I'm probably all messed up, and everything is kind of screwy around, and so in reality, we want to look at ourselves as a singular organism and understand that our conscious experience is not a singular experience. There's a unconscious experience and a conscious experience, and these things work together to create our lived experience. When we understand how that works, we can understand how to use breathing to influence these aspects of life.
Mm.
Speaking of machine, let me make sure my machine is plugged in. For some reason, I just got a quick thing that, hey, my battery is low. Bear with me just a second.
Yes, not a problem.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Excuse that interruption. I'm not
It's all
sure.
right.
It was plugged in, but I had to unplug it, then plug it back in again. So All right. So this is something you can't do with a human. You have to keep it going. So we have this connection. We have a conscious experience, which oftentimes we think that's just about it, right? We think, well, I have a body and I have a mind, and here's where my mind is, and then my body is down, neck down, and I'm just driving that thing around, and and the reality is, your conscious self, if you will, is only about maybe 5 or 10% of what is actually going on. Much more is below the surface, and you're not really consciously aware of it. And this, when it comes to mindset, is so important to understand, because this part of ourselves, our unconscious self, is essentially, it is influencing all of your beliefs about yourself, all of your beliefs about other people, all of your beliefs about the world around you, your capabilities within that space, where you stand in that space. And all of these things are happening all at once, and they're coloring your lived experience. So when we talk about it, there's a lot of wisdom in, you are the product of the 5 people you're around the most often. I think a lot of us have heard this. The reason for that is because you start to see the people that you're around, situations you're around, even the media that you ingest, whether it's music or the news or entertainment, you start to put together a picture of how things are. And this is not just a slow process. Your unconscious self puts together these pictures almost instantaneously. Enormous amounts of information processed almost in a moment, that put together patterns that your unconscious self believes is going to help you to survive or thrive, right? Or to ascend these hierarchies, or to become more successful in whatever category. And so all of that's happening in the background. And then you say, I'm going to go exercise. And there's a lot of unconscious processes that are coming into play. Your self-beliefs, your beliefs about yourself, your beliefs about other people who exercise. Maybe you've only been around people who are super judgy, or you've only been around people who fail. It's just a bunch of people who fail. And that is what my group of friends have shown me. We just, whenever we set out for a New Year's resolution, we all make it 2 weeks and then we fail. And that's just how things are. And that's how I am. And that's how things work. And so all of that comes into play when we think about our own beliefs about ourselves, our capabilities, our beliefs about what we're trying to achieve, and whether or not we actually achieve those goals. So what the language of breath is all about, and you're like, okay, people listening, I thought this was about breath work. I thought this was about breathing. It is. It all comes back to ultimately speaking back to that part of ourselves. And it all comes down to safety. So when you have these beliefs, let's suppose, hey, I'd like to get to the gym 3 times a week. Nothing major. I'm just trying to live a longer, healthier life. I know that my cardiovascular health depends on that. I know that every aspect of of who I am improves if I do 30 minutes of cardio 5 days a week, or whatever it is. Well, there's a lot of times things that are going to block that, depending on how safe we feel. Whether it's we feel like we're going to be awkward around other people, people are going to laugh at me because I don't know how to use these machines, all these other things. We have to, with our conscious thinking mind, we have to say, okay, I need to do this thing. And I know that there's a part of me that loves me very much, that unconscious part of me. It's trying to protect me. It's trying to keep me safe and secure. And therefore, it's trying to block me from doing the things I need to do. And so with breath work, we can speak calm and safety back into ourselves. And it's not like it's suddenly, oh, now it's all easy. I'm going to go in and I'm, slam dunk the basketball and all these things. But what it does is it helps us feel safe enough in those moments so that we can go and push ourselves a little bit further out of that comfort zone and get the things done. And the cool thing about this is, once you start doing those things, the unconscious you starts to see you as, hey, I'm someone who can do these things. This is not something that's that hard. Look at me. And so we're always dealing with these two parts of our conscious and unconscious selves. There are two aspects of being a human. We are not machines. You're not just going to go top down all the time on control, control, control. That's what I was trying to do when I was doing drugs and alcohol, or that's what we so often try to do with overeating or binge watching. Or we're trying to control the way we feel, but that's not a solution. That's ultimately just playing into the safety and not pushing ourselves to grow. So it's all very possible. And breath work is one of the strongest tools that I use with my clients to help them make those changes.
Wow. So basically, majority of what we do is in our unconscious, is what you're saying. Which I've also
It's
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the vast majority of our actions are directed by our unconscious self.
Yeah.
We have conscious ability to say, no, I'm not going to do that thing. Or we have the conscious ability to say, even though I don't want to do the thing, I'm going to make myself do the thing. However, it's so much easier if you can speak to your unconscious self and say, hey, relax, we're safe. And so that's where breath work can come into play.
Okay, that's fantastic. I love it. It makes the struggle make more sense of like, why do I struggle so much to, like you're saying, get to the gym, or why do I struggle so much to eat right? Like, I know the things, and
Exactly.
I think that like people who are listening today, I think they can relate to that. Like, I know what to do to be healthy. Like, I know the activities I need to do. I know the foods I need to eat, but then I sit on the couch and scroll social media, or I open up the bag of Doritos, and it's my subconscious mind trying to keep me safe. So it's trying to do the right thing, but I can speak to that through my conscious mind and start changing the way I think subconsciously. Is that kind of?
Yeah. So we have subconscious beliefs, and those change over time. Our unconscious, which is kind of encapsulating all of that. So not the same thing. Subconscious part of the unconscious would include all of those. I mean, a lot more than just our belief systems, but it all works together to change our thinking and to and we don't have conscious awareness of all these fears. We just feel the emotion. So you don't know why. A lot of times it's like, I don't know why it is. I know, and there's so many clients, and the world is full of well-meaning people who will count calories. They will buy the gym membership, get the t-shirt and the shoes, and do whatever it is that you're wanting to do, right? I'm not saying the gym is the best place. It just seems to be the thing that my unconscious is giving me that word right now.
Yeah.
But there's so many well-intended people who will take a lot of conscious actions, and then the unconscious will try to protect you and say, we'll start that tomorrow, or you'll find excuses, or you'll actually go to the gym, and because your subconscious beliefs, right? So because you have beliefs that are so secure in, I can't do this, other people are making fun of me, all those things, there's a part of your unconscious called the adaptive unconscious that takes your subconscious beliefs and makes you think that they're true, even if they're not.
Okay.
And so when we can become aware of this. So first of all, in the language of breath, something my clients hear all the time is awareness is the foundation of all positive change. Once you know that's happening, you can start to consciously say, it's probably not as bad as I think it is. There's a part of me that loves me very much, that is trying to protect me, and that is trying to help me. And it's giving me these emotions, coming back to the reason why so many of us have these negative habits, right? We feel these feelings, we have these emotions, these stress response, all of these things, and we don't understand what they are. And I'll let you know a very simple thing, and then you can all read my book this fall. Please read my book this fall,
Awesome.
called The Language of Breath. But the simple way to say it is all of these sensations, all of these emotions, all of these things, They are biological signals from the unconscious that are trying to get you to move to action or to not take action. But generally, they're trying to get you to take some kind of action, whether that is avoidance actions, or there are times whenever it's like, yes, I want that thing. Because if you're around people, and we all understand the basic feeling of peer pressure, if you're around people and they're all doing an activity, this is why fitness groups and clubs are so helpful when you have a support network. It's because the part of you that's trying to help you to maintain status in the social order and wanting to maintain friendships and things like that, because those are very important for our survival. They have always been. It's saying, hey, yeah, you don't really want to do this, but we should do this. Let's do this. So finding support is so important. Finding other people who are enthusiastic, not a bunch of people who just sit around and complain. So if you're a person who sits around and the only thing you can think of to do, and hey, be okay with admitting, hey, I'm a person who loves to complain. Honesty is so important. I don't really want to do it. I know I should, all those things. Go find some people that really love doing it, and that obviously that you can tolerate being around. And the unconscious you is going to try to make you not like them, because it's going to say, these people are judgy and they're all blah, blah, blah. But you hang out with that group, suddenly the unconscious you is like, well, everybody here this is a social hierarchy. I'd like to be in this social hierarchy. And so you're going to get more energy to do the things that consciously you want to do. So you have to work with that. Now, how does breath work, play into this? Well, once you start to understand how this works, you can start to understand how breathing interfaces with the unconscious. And the way that it does that is it works through your autonomic nervous system. And so that is part of the unconscious you. But we call this, in the language of breath philosophy, we call this the Rosetta Stone of the language of breath. And that is, if you're not familiar, many of you guys will be familiar. This is a lot of educators, I'm sure, that are here. But the Rosetta Stone was a stone that was found in the 1800s, and it allowed translators to translate ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics using the Rosetta Stone. And man, they had a hard time doing it, but they were able to do it using that. It had 3 different languages, and they could say, okay, based off of this, we know. It's not just the program that you bought to try to learn Spanish,
Right.
and then you never did, right? So maybe that was my thing. But essentially, we know that when our unconscious feels safe, certain elements of our physiology will change to one way. And whenever it doesn't feel safe, our physiology will change to another way. Our hormonal expression, our circulation, blood sugar, respiration rate, heart rate, all of these things. And so out of all those things, we cannot control any of them, except for we do have conscious control to our breathing. So now that I'm starting to talk about conscious control of the breathing, those of you who are listening, you might be like, I wonder how I'm breathing. Oh, let's see, where is my breath? How am I doing that? And so this is something you share with your unconscious self. It's the link that we can share. And when we start changing it over here, the other side starts to notice. And that's how breath work ultimately can work. There are other aspects of breath work as well, but the primary way that we communicate safety and even excitement or all sorts of things to the unconscious self is with our breathing. And so when we adjust our breathing, we can adjust the message we're sending to the unconscious self. And then we can say, hey, we're safe. This is not the end of the world. This is going to be okay. Now, having said that, I think sometimes people might think, well, I don't want to take a nap all the time. It's not that extreme. If I sent a person in, and we train we train the military, we train first responders. They're not going into a fire and then doing the technique and being like, oh, there's nothing wrong. They're still alert. They're still definitely, sensing all these things. The unconscious is trying to help that person to become really aware of danger. Finding the danger is something the unconscious is very good at doing. But what we do is we train a person well before then to breathe functionally and to form that better relationship with the unconscious, so that when they're in that situation, they can down regulate that threat response, and they're familiar with how the unconscious speaks. And so what you'll have is a firefighter or a police officer or a EMT or a soldier, and they'll go into these high stress life or death situations. They can down regulate. Their other sensory inputs are saying danger, 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 but at least one is saying, okay, let's relax, let's stay calm. Because when you don't do that, we get into this state of fight or flight, where it's very difficult to think whenever you're in the state of fight or flight. Our organism, so the human species, we have some major trade-offs when we get into the state of fight or flight. And so there's different levels of autonomic arousal. So you might have a little bit more and more energy. But once you're state of fight or flight, you start to get less blood flow or less activity in the brain. So your ability to think and reason and be creative and problem solving and all that reduces. And all you can think of is, I'm going to either go or I'm going to run. And that's, sadly enough, the state we find so many people in when they're not in a battlefield or something like that. They're sitting at a desk, they're in a state of fight or flight. And I think we all remember algebra class where we forgot all the answers, or the chemistry was the one for me. I was just like, I'm so nervous, right? But that's what that is. Your unconscious self says, we are not safe. There is a threat to either our physical safety or our status or something. And it will utilize what it has to help you to take action. And that's always going to be movement. And so we have to learn how to down regulate so we can start to concentrate, so we can relax, so we're not at each other's throats. There's a lot of times whenever, this is the summer, so we don't have as many family get-togethers, but, someone brings up politics or religion or something like that. Oh, the alarms go up. And now I have to fight for something. And we can downregulate that response and say, I'm safe. This person is not really a threat to me. And hey, I want to win the argument too. Okay. So, hey, it's all good. I can think more creatively and fully if I stay calm and I know that I'm safe, as opposed to getting all, my chest starts thumping. And then later on, you're in the shower and I should have said this to, remember, we all do this. This is part of the human condition. So when it comes to breath work and the gift that I'm going to give everyone that's here is a kind of a dip your toes into nervous system regulation techniques and things like that. I definitely encourage everyone to take that. It's not normally free. So, but I do appreciate being on the summit, and I want to spread that to all of the listeners. We can start to learn how to interface with this part of ourselves that humanity has been struggling to interface with since we were humans. I don't care how far you go back. We've ruminated. We've been looking for peace. We've been looking for, some way to get around this aspect that is just, I'm sorry, guys, it is just part of how it is. You've got a conscious and an unconscious self. And when you understand how they interface and how they get together, you can start to form a better relationship. And it's not about control. It's about harmony and learning how to form a better relationship with yourself.
Wow. So you hit on a couple of things. I was like, that's exactly where I wanted to go.
Great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The community aspect of it, because when I work with people and their research that I do as well, that is such an important piece. And you hit on that a little bit, the kind of the fitting in and the status of that's part of why. Can you just touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So the more I've researched, the more I found out that mom and dad were right. Those kids you hang out with are going to influence you. And this is something that is inherent into the human condition. And it goes all the way back to the fact that survival of our species was very interdependent on community.
Mhm.
And this is why in most cultures to be banished is worse than to be killed.
Mhm.
It's why we just cannot take the fact, or we can't really take it to be otherized. It's awful for us, right? And that is something that it doesn't go away. And you can say, oh, I don't care what other people think of me and all these things, but we absolutely do. And so what happens is, even if it's not on a conscious level, you are putting together a picture of how people are, what is acceptable behavior, what is all of the things that inform you of how you should behave. And you can consciously be like, well, I'm hanging out with these people. They're a lot of fun. I would never want to act like this because I know better. But I want to hang out with these people. I'm going to just generally hang out with them. Well, I'm sorry, my friends. And I'm sorry to teenage Jesse. Um, this is impossible unless you are really good at white knuckling it, right? Your conscious, when it comes between your conscious and your unconscious self will win every time because it is more of you than the part of us that we think is us, right? We've got this conception, my mind is what I'm aware of right now, but there's more of you that is unconscious than there is conscious. In fact, it's somewhere like it's like a 90% of you, and that's your personality, that's your sense of humor, your moral code, your values, all of those things, the things that are important to you, those are all determined by your unconscious, and those are determined by your experiences and the people that you're around, the influences that you have. And so it's so important to try to find positive influences, because your conscious self is there to kind of hopefully direct and to suppress some of your urges of the unconscious, and to say, okay, that one's a good one, let's go this way. So which is important, because you need to consciously think about who you're going to be around. This is difficult when we go through life changes, because if all you've ever been around is a certain type of person who's been a negative influence on you, those people will be more natural for you to revolve to because they're safe, right? It all comes down to safety. Those people, I understand the way that works. I get them. And we'll tell ourselves all these stories like, it's just that I enjoy that person, or, well, safety is something that we seek out. So consciously, it's like, okay, maybe I'll have to push myself out of my comfort zone to hang around people who care about their mental health, about their physical health, about their financial health, about all of these things that we aspire to, we do want them, but so often we are around people that have different values. And so there's ultimately, it's this interesting thing. There's this way of looking at our psychology, especially when it comes to the unconscious, and it is that all we see is all there is. And what that means is, if that's what you're around, you're not going to be thinking outside of that. You might say consciously, oh, I'm going to not spend my money like my friends, they're just wasting their money and going into debt, or I'm not going to smoke, or I'm not, oh, they're all, but just watch. It's going to happen. And that's because you're in that social hierarchy. And we don't want to believe that these things are important, but it's part of being a human being that we just can't, you're not going to get outside of that ever. So that is why it's so important to find a community, even if it's uncomfortable at first, knowing that, hey, I'm changing my surroundings, and that's going to be a little different from my unconscious mind, and that unconscious Jesse is going to be a little uncomfortable. So whenever I decide to go do that, I'm going to do some breath work. I'm going to do some breath work as I go, as I drive there, as I'm present, because I know that I can speak some calm and safety into my psychology, and I'll at least be able to give these people a chance. And the more you do that, the easier it's going to become, because again, your unconscious is always picking up patterns. These people aren't a threat, or they might seem absolutely threatening if you allow that to happen. So you have to take conscious efforts to let your unconscious know that this is a safe group of people to be around. These are people that I can trust. and therefore I'm going to let them influence me because I know that's good for me in the long run. You can't consciously do that forever. So that's why we have to tell the unconscious, and using breath work is, you're never going to run out of a supply. It's free and you won't forget it at home, right?
Yeah.
So using breath work is one of the best ways we can do that, because it's always going to be there, and you're not having to, like, a lot of times people feel nervous being around new groups, so they'll drink, they'll do a lot of things that are really uncomfortable and or unhealthy, and then develop all kinds of bad habits trying to change their social group, and in doing so create a worse situation than they had before.
Oh, I love this, because, and I'm like, I totally relate to this, because let's see, like 6 months ago, I had to change martial arts schools. And
Oh,
so
yeah, that's tough.
it was it, just getting to the point where I was willing to go look at schools. Like, it took me a while, and this is making sense. It's that social hierarchy of, I'm moving into a new hierarchy, and I wasn't walking in as a new student. I was walking in experienced. But yeah, so I like, and like you said, like, I walked into one school and I was like, mm-mm.
Uh-huh.
Like, not my vibe, not my people, not what I'm looking for. And I walked into another one, and immediately upon walking in, I was like,
Yeah,
this is different. This is, I think
this is
this
a
is what
place I
I'm
can be
looking for.
home. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
And
it's
it,
crazy because there's
yeah,
so many
mm,
factors that you computed instantaneously that it would take your conscious thinking mind hours and hours to do, but the unconscious you is so strong. And there is times whenever we have to say, okay, a lot of times we talk about listening to your gut or listening to your heart. And that's ultimately the unconscious that's
mm,
speaking, right? And it will speak through sensations, it will speak through feelings and
mm,
emotions. Sometimes it's not right. So that's why we need that conscious self there to kind of double check its work. But things like that is like, okay, especially when it comes to, okay, I'm switching martial arts things. This is literally physical safety is at stake, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
so having a good feeling about it means there are things that maybe you're not even consciously aware that you're looking for,
mhm,
that your unconscious is looking for, and boom, here it is. Great. And then you double check with the conscious self, is this, are these people nice, and is this going well? But that's so helpful to have a part of ourselves we often just overlook.
yeah. And it was like, leaving that first school, my conscious self was like trying to give them a second chance. Like, well,
Yep.
is it really as bad as I feel it
Right.
is?
But that's
And I
good.
called my brother and I was like, all right, 2 strikes here. And he's like, nope, 3 strikes. He's like, you're done. Like, that's not the place. I was like, okay. I just needed that confirmation of like,
Yeah.
yeah. But then, yeah, when I walked into the other one, I was like, oh, okay. I
Uh-huh.
see what I was feeling at the other place. I see why I didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's so helpful to listen to that, and
Mhm.
and to double check it, but to actually have that feeling again. Your unconscious is always going to win, and unless we can really speak that confidence and calm. If for some reason you were consciously thinking and it's like, man, no, that first place, even though I had a bad feeling about it, I know after really thinking about it, this is the best place for me.
Mhm.
Well, then you would need to prove that to the unconscious you, and we can do stuff like that by say, okay, I'm going to breathe and allow some safety back into my consciousness, or myself.
Mhm.
Um and it would take time to undo some of the patterns that it's picking up. Danger, but absolutely nice to have that alignment. It's like,
Yeah.
I feel good about it and I think good about it. Perfect.
Yeah. Yep. Still had to like talk down my nerves stepping on the floor in the new school the first
Oh yeah.
time, you know?
There's
It's,
so many things at play, but yeah. I've had that happen before. Whenever you switch a club, or when you're trying to pick a new place, and there's always going to be some of that. But it's nice to know, hey, I feel right about this, and it computes after thinking about it.
yeah. Well, thank you so much. You've given us such a good understanding of like what's going on, and like thank you for providing the gift to the audience of being able to kind of dip our toes into this and start working with the breath work. I know for myself, it like I use breath work quite a bit, like in those anxious moments to like you said, down regulate myself to where I can function and think. So thank you for providing that tool to our audience, and thank you for like giving us like the science behind this. That's my background is science, so like I can geek out
Love
on
it.
this stuff.
I love it. Yeah, the course is designed to be a nice way to dip into it. It takes less than an hour to complete the online course that you'll be getting for free. There
Fantastic.
is a offer at the end if you'd like to take a deeper dive into like my full 6-week course. And then my book is coming out in the fall, so it'll be coming out. I believe the release date is October 24th. If you'd like to read more about how this stuff works and how breath work can be used to form a better relationship with your unconscious.
Fantastic. Yeah. So look for his book and check your email for the link to the course. It's only an hour. So that's a fantastic way to get started. And just personally, I can't say enough about breath work. And I'm not like Jesse's like a guru in breath work. I'm like a little novice in it. But I just can't say enough about the effect of it when you start to practice, like you're saying, practice it in the safe settings, and then it just becomes a natural tool in the not dangerous settings, but
Even dangerous, even if it is
yeah,
a dangerous setting, but yeah, the places where you don't necessarily feel that safe. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So thank you very much, Jesse. I appreciate you joining us. And to our audience, thank you for listening. And please check out Jesse's course and his book when it comes out.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.